Hi, so thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. Can you introduce yourself and a little bit of what you do here at Henry Viler Zoo?
Sure. So my name's Jess Thompson. I'm the Conservation and Education Curator
Mhm.
here at Henry Vilas Zoo. I've been in that role for since 2017, but I've actually been here at the zoo since 2010.
Oh,
I
wow.
started as a zookeeper here.
Mhm.
We're a fairly small zoo, so I worked with pretty much all of the animals, but
Mhm.
was the primary keeper for the big cats, lions, and tigers.
Awesome. And what does a typical day look like here for you?
That is a challenging question because I don't know if there is such a
Yeah.
thing, which is one of the things that I like the most about the job is that it is really varied.
Mhm.
So in my role, I oversee our education programs, I oversee our conservation programs and sustainability initiatives. And so today is our very first day of summer camp. So this morning I went down and I greeted our campers and helped get them settled for the morning. And I am a little bit later in the day about to go do some encounters with them so they can meet animals and learn about different aspects of zoos and all of their science challenges.
Mhm.
And then I also have been working on figuring out how to get some of our sustainability initiatives to move forwards. We're looking at getting some more solar. We just launched a composting initiative. So kind of a little bit of
Yeah,
everything.
awesome. That's really cool. I didn't know you guys did those things like with people introducing. That's really cool. Um, how do you and your team ensure that the animals are healthy and mentally stimulated and comfortable at the zoo?
Yeah, that is a really important question. So we look at animal well-being quite a bit and talk a
Mhm.
lot about animal well-being and animal welfare. We are accredited by the Association of Zoos and Aquariums. So that is the gold standard in
Mhm.
accrediting bodies for zoos and aquariums. There are hundreds and thousands of places around the US that hold animals or have animals for public to come look at, but only a very small fraction of those, about 10% of those, are actually accredited by the AZA.
Mhm.
And so the AZA comes in every 5 years and does a really thorough inspection. We have to meet all of these different standards, and the standards increase every single year. So that's one of the things I like the most about being a part of
Yeah.
AZA is that what worked for us in the 1970s doesn't
Mhm.
work for us now.
Yeah.
We know more, so we can do better. So we're always looking at ways to increase our animals' welfare, whether that's building new exhibits and making more naturalistic exhibits in bigger spaces.
Mhm.
Back in the day, we used to have tons of animals, but they were in very small spaces. And these days, zoos are moving towards fewer animals in much bigger spaces,
Mhm.
so giving them a lot more room to move around. Adding enrichment, thinking about
Yeah.
their nutrition, adding staff who are experts in all of these different areas too, or what are some of those ways?
Yeah. Speaking of enrichment, what kind of enrichment activities do you provide to like mimic natural behaviors and things like that for the animals?
Yeah, so it can be a whole variety of things. It can be anything from changing around furniture in an exhibit
Mhm.
so that animals can jump or swing or dig, or it can be adding different scents. So a lot of animals rely on different senses besides just their visual sense.
Mhm.
So adding different scents for animals in different areas so they can go explore and think about, oh, who was in this space
Yeah.
before? Adding things like sound. So the sound of rain or the sound of rushing water. And then also some non-naturalistic sounds or scents or toys to play with can be
Mhm.
really stimulating
Yeah.
as well.
Awesome. What role do modern zoos play in wildlife conservation?
Another great question. So really that's what modern zoos are all about,
Mhm.
especially zoos that are accredited by the AZA. So as part of our AZA standards, we have to be a part of conservation, wildlife conservation, and we have to think about how can we have our animals be ambassadors for their wild counterparts. That's the whole reason we're here. We're
Mhm.
here to educate and inspire people to take action on behalf of animals. And so that's one of the really big ways. like our zoo camp I mentioned. People just coming in the gates and learning about species and learning about the trouble that they're in and how they can take action on behalf of these species is a really big part of zoos' role in conservation. There's some statistic out there that that is AZA accredited zoos see more people every single year than the NFL, NHL, NBA all combined.
Wow.
So zoos are seeing more people than these huge sports organizations, and which that means that we have a really big responsibility to educate people and inspire people and motivate all of those people to take action on behalf of animals.
Can you explain a little bit what the AZA is and like how it works amongst the zoos?
Sure. So like I said, it's an accrediting body. So that means that there is an independent organization that that is kind of the backbone of the AZA. And then it's made up by all of the institutions. And so there are inspectors from different zoos, which could be veterinarians, they could be people in finance, they can be people who oversee volunteers or directors of other zoos. And they make up those teams that go out and inspect all the other zoos to make sure that they are meeting those standards. And then it's really great networking organization. So constantly we're talking to colleagues at other zoos to learn about best practices and to collaborate on different projects. I think I have probably sent 10 emails already today with colleagues in different zoos across the country and in other countries as well. You know, there are zoos in Canada and Mexico and now even in Abu Dhabi that are AZA accredited. The Bahamas has a new accredited zoo. So really thinking about how are we all working on this mission together and how can we do it collaboratively so that we're not just working in silos and reinventing the wheel when we're trying to figure things out.
Are there any success stories of endangered species being protected and reintroduced to the wild through zoo programs that you know of?
Absolutely. Yeah, there are a ton of them actually. So one example that we have here on grounds are golden lion tamarins. And those are little monkeys that live in South America. So Brazil is one of their main countries of origin. We have them down at our animal health center exhibit. So if people want to come visit them here, that's where they can find them. And this species was extinct in the wild. And if it weren't for zoos, they would have gone completely extinct. But zoos were able to breed them in human care and then re-release them back into the wild. And now there's a population back in their original habitat. And that's similar for California condors. California condors were down to about 16 or 18 individuals in the entire population. And zoos brought them all into human care and helped raise chicks and help protect them, and then have been releasing them back into the wild. Whooping cranes are another example right here in Wisconsin. There's a big program to work with whooping cranes, and the International Crane Foundation does a lot of work with them as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. There's a public perception that zoos are unethical because they keep animals in captivity. Do you have anything to say to people who might feel this way?
You know what? I think that comes from a place of caring. And so I really appreciate that people care enough about animals to worry that they're not being taken care of appropriately. Yeah. And I think that's a healthy and important attitude to have. And that's where accrediting bodies like the AZA come in. There are zoos in places that hold animals out there that aren't taking very good care of them and that aren't meeting those animals' needs and doing it for the right reasons. And so that truly is a valid concern. And so I encourage people to continue to look at how the animals are being taken care of and learn more about AZA and think about, you know, are the zoos that they know of meeting their mission, and keep pushing them to do more. So I think it's a healthy and important attitude to have, and I appreciate that there are so many people that care so much about animals out there, and that is what really makes us all better.
What misconceptions do you think people have about the work done in zoos?
Yeah, so zoos have come a long way. They really did start off as places to just see these crazy looking species. And it was much less about the animals themselves and just about people coming in and kind of ogling these crazy species. But these days, really, it is about the mission of wildlife conservation and inspiring people. And so zoos have made a lot of changes along the way. And I think that's one of the pieces that people don't always see is all of the changes that zoos are making and all of the work that goes on behind the scenes. So all of our animals are involved in training programs. So lots of people have cats and dogs at home. And when you take your cat or your dog to the vet, probably them getting blood or getting a shot is not the most pleasant experience, especially if you think about cats especially don't like getting shots. But our animals here are trained for those types of things. So it's a much less stressful prospect for our animals and for our veterinarians and for our keepers. And it's all positive reinforcement training. So just the other day, we did a voluntary blood draw on one of our lions. We don't go in with our lions. It's all through what we call protected contact. So we were able to ask him to put his tail out through a slot. He could leave at any time, but he stayed and put his tail out through the slot, and we were able to get some blood to make sure that he's healthy. And he got some meatballs for that. And that was all voluntary and all a really positive experience. So all of that training is a really important way that we take care of our animals in a really, really positive way, and not something that people always see when they come to zoos.
Awesome. Are there any experiences you've had with the animals that you'd want to share with the public to get your opinion, your view on zoos? And
yeah, I mean, I think there's tons. Some of the things that we are learning from animals that are in human care and in zoos is really hard to learn out in the wild. So we have been part of a number of studies with our animals here that are helping their wild counterparts. So there's some really cool studies out there, like one with polar bears that is creating a new tracking device. Male polar bears' heads are actually smaller than their necks, so you can't put a collar on a male polar bear because it'll just slide right off. So figuring out another way to do radio tracking is really important. And the Arctic is a really hard place to do tracking because polar bears are white, the snow is white, and it's a really big space and it's very cold. So doing some trial tests with zoo polar bears who are trained to come up and trained to let you put this tracker on and take it off. And if it falls off, it's just somewhere in the exhibit. It's not somewhere in miles of Arctic. And you can make some tweaks to that prototype and really get it working before taking it out to wild polar bears is one of the ways that zoo animals are helping. And the projects like that are really cool to be involved in. So those are some of the most exciting things that I see us doing.
With polar bears and penguins, like animals who are usually, in the Arctic and in cold, like how do you guys make sure that they're in a safe environment that supports what they need? I know we've talked about this a little bit before, but
absolutely. Yeah, so for polar bears, there are actually many polar bears that live in their very southern range. They do live in areas where it gets warm, and they come off of the sea ice, and the sea ice melts, and they just hunker down for the summer. We always provide our polar bears with access to various spaces, and this is true for a lot of our different animals. So if you don't see one of our animals out on exhibit, it means that they have access to a back bedroom area that may be air conditioned, or maybe just give them a little bit of privacy, or gives them a different place to be. So that's one of the ways that we make sure that our animals have choices to make their own decisions about what's most comfortable for them. If they want to be out and in the pool and swimming around, then that's great. If they want to be back in the air conditioning, then that's great as well.
Awesome. Are there any improvements you'd like to see zoos make as they evolve.
Always, yeah. I think we're always learning. We're learning about how best to message to people and inspire people to action. We're learning about how to design kind of whole life care for our animals.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of our animals go from one zoo to another zoo as they're part of breeding recommendations. So many of our species are part of what's called a species survival plan. And that is a big database. It's kind of Tinder for zoos. It matches up different animals who, based on their genetics, who would be good matches to have offspring. And so sometimes animals don't stay in the same zoo their whole life. They'll go off to another zoo and be a mom or dad at another zoo. And so thinking about that from day one is something that zoos are starting to do. So how do we prepare this animal to be comfortable in a place that's not here? How do we make sure that they are comfortable around a different type of exhibit or a different type of people, or learn how to go into a crate and that's not a scary experience for them as they go off and have to travel to a different place.
Awesome. And just lastly, do you have anything else that we haven't touched on in the questions I asked, but you'd like to say regarding ethics of zoos?
Yeah, I think that it's great that people continue to ask questions, and knowing that a zoo that you're visiting is accredited by the AZA is a really great way to know that they are meeting all of these really strict standards, and learn more, dig deeper, learn about what they're doing for conservation and ask questions about that, learn about what they're doing for research studies and ask questions about that, and how they train their animals. If there are any keeper chats or behind the scenes experiences, those are really great ways to get that firsthand information from people who work directly with those animals. Our keepers really care about our animals. That's who they go home and think about at night, and who keeps them up at 2:00 in the morning. That's who they think about, as they're driving to work. And that goes for the rest of our staff as well. It really takes a whole village to make sure that our zoo is running smoothly and our animals are in good care. And a lot of people here in Madison don't know that they have a free zoo right down the road. And especially for students at the UW, we're a mile away. We're a bus ride away or a bike ride away, and we're free. We're one of the few free zoos that are AZA accredited, so it's really easy to get here. Come check us out.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It was really insightful. This is really interesting and
good.
Thank you. Yeah.
I love it. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.